For years, I walked the fields and woods, gun in hand. Now, I've the memories, like my friend Harvey. I hadn't seen Harvey in several years, but I recognized him when he came into Aunt Eunice's for breakfast that morning. I laughed, because Harvey held a special place in my heart. Harvey was the first person to sell me a bird dog worth owning. Before Harvey, I didn't know what a good bird dog was. And that fact alone liked to have got me killed. But that's another story. Harvey had a sadness about him that morning. Knowing his love to be bird hunting, I asked him if he'd had a successful season. Harvey shook his head. It had been very disappointing. He was down to one dog, Green at that. The few times he'd been, his dog had run up the birds. Harvey continued, saying it just wasn't the same since his wife had died. He was afraid to get out much, afraid he might get sick and become a burden to himself and others. Harvey didn't know it, but he was talking to a friend who had 2 English setters in their prime. These dogs were litter mates and compatible. Better than compatible, they teamed perfectly. One was a winder, one a trailer. Both worked coveys and singles equally well, and both retrieved. Belle and Sue were lovable, well-mannered, efficient hunting companions. I replied, Harvey, tell you what, why don't you meet me at Thomas Barbecue out Highway 72, noon on closing day, 2 Saturdays from now. We'll eat us a plate full of ribs and run out to Dad's farm, only 8 miles away. I've got pet coveys scattered all over the place. Bring your dog with you. It'll be okay. I guarantee we'll see Flutter and lots of good dog work. We'll kill a pocket full of birds, too. Harvey's response was in his eyes more than anywhere else. Few words were spoken as Harvey smiled and accepted my invitation. We ate those ribs as planned, drove out to the farm, pulled up to the first spot, a cut bean field with a couple of brush piles in the middle, and the hunt was on. It was like one of my setters said to the other, okay, let's do it. As they trotted out to the first brush pile and locked on point. Our hunt began with dogs pointing, quail flushing, guns firing, and feathers flying. Truth is, that afternoon, Harvey and I shot almost a box of shells apiece and put only 14 quail in our coat. But hey, the dogs did their part. We saw birds and lots of good dog work. We just weren't sharp that day, but who cares? It was a great afternoon. Now it was late in the afternoon. In another 30 minutes, the sun would set. All the world was bathed in orange, and nature's only sound would be quail calling as they whistled to regroup. A quiet time, a sacred time, a time when the bird hunter knows with every fiber of his being that he is blessed and that life is good. Harvey and I had driven to the edge of a woods. The field next to it was 10 acres at the most, with a brushy line of cover running north to south, right through the middle. Looking back, we'd had a heck of an afternoon, and there really wasn't any need to make one last go. But isn't that the way with most of God's children? One more time. So Harvey and I began our walk along the wood's edge. We'd gone about 100 yards when Harvey stopped. I was next to him and asked, "Harvey, are you all right?" He paused, then answered, "Yes." Slowly, we continued, but not far before Harvey stopped again. Sensing something wrong, I said, "Harvey, we've had a beautiful afternoon, a good time together. What do you say we turn around and call it a day?" Walking back, we faced a setting sun. The world was orange enough. You could imagine everything in flame. Such beauty, such indescribable beauty. Then, from the corner of my eye, I saw Harvey 20 yards to my right, only 5 feet from the road, collapse. He dropped as if struck by a hammer. I'm certain my friend was unconscious before he hit the ground.
It's a fun challenge.
You may think such an experience was horrible and traumatic, but some of you, I hope all of you, know better. I moved quickly and saw an old friend alone who had lived and loved a lifetime, and now was going home. I sat down and held him as spirit communed with spirit. Harvey's body was in my arms, but Harvey wasn't there. He was above me, looking down. I looked up at Harvey with a smile, and yes, some tears. Said my goodbyes, and Harvey went on to my dying day. I'll thank God, and I'll thank my friend Harvey for that afternoon I was privileged to share. I remember that hunt as a beautiful, sacred, and holy time, a gift to my friend Harvey, and to me.
Pay employees using direct deposit or checks you print yourself. If you need help, SurePayroll's award-winning
For years, I walked the fields and woods, gun in hand. Now, I've the memories, like my friend Harvey. I hadn't seen Harvey in several years, but I recognized him when he came into Aunt Eunice's for breakfast that morning. I laughed, because Harvey held a special place in my heart. Harvey was the first person to sell me a bird dog worth owning. Before